Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and back to a brand new video. In today's video, we are going to be going over a video that I found on the great TikTok, sarcasm, of a liberal father doing a story time of how he, how to put this, how he cut his sons off when he found out that they voted for Donald Trump, committing the ultimate sin. Now, for context, his sons, I believe, are 20 and 22, so they are just now starting to enter adulthood. They're leaving, the college years. For the first time, are entering the world as adults and dealing with financial responsibility and all the things that we all had to deal with when we were that age, which could be a pretty scary time, by the way. And this father goes on to explain how when he found out that his sons voted for Donald Trump one night, he was so upset, so angry that he decided to cut them off financially from any help that they were receiving prior to voting for Donald Trump. And he tries to justify his behavior and tries to make it seem as though he's, teaching them a tough lesson. So I'm gonna have you guys watch this video first, and then once done, I'm gonna give you guys my input and my perspective, and I would love to hear yours as well in the comments down below. Brace yourselves. We're entering Crazy Town, AKA the liberal universe. Roll it.
You fucked around with your vote, now it's time you found out. Am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially after they voted for Trump? I, 52 male, have two sons, Isaac, 22 male, and John, 20 male. My wife and I have always leaned left politically, and we've raised our kids to value equality, compassion, and critical thinking. We've had countless family discussions about politics and the impact of policies on people's lives. So you can imagine my shock when I found out after this last election that both of my sons voted for Trump. It came out during a casual family dinner when I asked, "So, who'd you guys vote for?" expecting them to either dodge the question or name one of the candidates aligned with our values. Isaac shrugged and said, "Trump. His policies just make the most sense right now." John chimed in, "Yeah, I mean, he's about protecting the economy. People like us need someone who gets that." I stared at them, stunned. "People like us?" I asked. "Boy, you've never paid for a single tank of gas, let alone rent or tuition. What exactly do you mean by that?" Isaac rolled his eyes. "Dad, I'm studying business. Trump's pro-business. It's not that deep." "It's plenty deep," I snapped. "You're backing someone who's gutted protections for the environment, undermined health care, and actively targeted marginalized communities." John shook his head. "You're just looking at the negatives. He's strong on immigration and keeping jobs here." The conversation spiraled into a heated debate. I couldn't understand how they, having grown up with every advantage I could provide, could support someone who champions policies that harm so many people. That night I thought about how much my wife and I had sacrificed to give them opportunities. I worked extra hours to cover their tuition so they wouldn't have student loans. I paid for their gas, car insurance, and even groceries. And this is what they choose to do with that privilege? A few days later, I told them my decision. "If you want to support Trump's policies, you should also live by them," I said. "From now on, you'll need to cover your own tuition, rent, and living expenses. Maybe then you'll understand the real-world impact of the policies you are endorsing." Isaac was furious. "Are you serious, Dad? You're just cutting us off because we disagree with you politically." "It's not about disagreement," I said firmly. "It's about accountability. You voted for someone who's against student loan forgiveness, so take out loans. You support someone who doesn't believe in raising the minimum wage, so get a job that pays what it pays and figure it out." John looked hurt. "You're being petty. This isn't how you change someone's mind." "This isn't about changing your mind," I replied. "It's about giving you a dose of reality. FAFO ain't just some cool hashtag you and your little friends use. It means there are consequences to your actions. Political choices have consequences. You're adults now. It's time to act like it. You fucked around with your vote, now it's time you found out." My wife thinks I'm being too harsh. She worries this will damage our relationship with them long term. She said, they're young. They're still figuring out their beliefs. Beliefs have consequences, I told her. They made a choice. Now they'll learn what that choice means. Some of my friends agree with me, saying it's a fair wake-up call. Others think I'm letting politics come between family and being unnecessarily cruel. So, am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially because of their political choices? You know, you got a good point. I don't think you're the asshole. I think you're going to let them find out what they fucked around with, their vote. And voting has consequences.
Yeah, and there you have it. Father of the Year. Now, I want to make some things clear before I go into my perspective or my opinion on this man. Now, I firmly support the idea of any parent at some point deciding that, listen, as my child, my adult child, you have to stand on your own. You have to figure things out on your own. You have to be responsible. I'm kicking you out of the nest. I'm all for that. I totally get it. I totally understand it. It makes sense. At some point, we all have to cut the cord, right? And be financially independent from our parents. Totally get it. But this man wouldn't be doing this if his sons voted for Kamala Harris. And that's the problem. See, that tells me that this has nothing to do with him trying to make them independent financially or turn them into men. So this is about being vindictive, being upset, being angry that your sons use their own free will to make their own free decisions in a free election. If this was really about financial independence, you wouldn't be doing this just because they voted for Donald Trump. You're doing this to teach them a lesson because you're upset that Donald Trump won. And because you can't attack Donald Trump directly, I'll just attack my sons, which to me is pathetic and sad, but also on brand for liberals. I mean, liberals are cutting off family members left, right, and center. So why wouldn't a dad cut off his sons impromptu? Now, here's my issue with this, right? We've all been in our early 20s trying to figure it out, not knowing what the hell to do, financially not being stable, because I don't know any 20-something-year-old in their early 20s who is financially stable. It's a rarity, okay? I think about myself when I was in my early 20s and how much I struggled financially to stand on my own 2 feet. And thank God I have two very supportive and loving parents who had no problem supporting me as long as I was going to school and working and doing what I was supposed to do. And my parents paid most of my bills in that stage of my life because they knew that I financially could not stand on my own at that point in time. And here's the thing, right? My dad was always a conservative, a strict Republican conservative most of my life. And I grew up in a conservative household, and then I sort of reared away from that when I turned into like my late teens, early, pretty much the same age as his boys. I started to try to find my own way, and I didn't exactly fall in line with my parents' beliefs as far as politics at that point in time in my life. And I remember when we first moved down to Florida, and I went to the DMV to get my state ID. And in Florida, they allow you to pick a political party when you get your state ID. And at that point in time, I was in my rebel stage. I was in my, I want to find my own way. I don't want to just do what my parents are telling me to do type of deal. My dad was standing next to me, and I got to the point of the page where it asked you what your political affiliation was, Democrat, Republican, Independent. And my dad was like, you know, you should pick Republican. You know, like that's what I am, and that's definitely the better choice. But it's up to you. And he gave me that choice. He didn't put pressure on me. He didn't say, you have to do this, or if you don't go Republican, I'm cutting you off financially. I'm not going to help you be stable. You're getting kicked out of the house. Like, he didn't do any of that. He allowed me to make my own way and to make my own decision. And I chose at that time to register as an independent because I didn't feel connected to either party. And by the way, today I'm still a registered independent. And I remember that moment because my dad could have done what this liberal father did, which is pressure me into picking a party or picking a side that aligns with his belief and pretty much trying to bully me into a corner to have his perspective. And I'm thankful that my dad allowed that grace upon me to find my own way. And yes, I reared left, and you guys know my backstory. If you don't, I have a video up here explaining why I left the left. But I have left that side and I am back where I belong, which is on the right. And more right-leaning conservative ideals because the left is batshit crazy. But I had to find my own way. My dad allowed me that grace at that young age in my 20s to figure it out myself, as opposed to trying to make me figure it out his way. So this kind of struck a chord with me when I watched this video, because although I do agree and I understand any parent's decision at some point to say, well, cutting you off, you got to stand on your own, you're 21 now, you got to do it. I'm not saying I'm against that, but the motives should be correct. The timing should be correct. And you should have a grace period for your children to wake up one day and say, oh, by the way, I'm not paying for anything anymore that I was paying for. It's done. On Monday I was, Tuesday I'm not anymore. That's not fair to that kid, because now he has to figure out what he's going to do, because he was dependent on you financially, because you allowed him to be dependent on you financially, and you've given him no period of grace to transition to be fully independent. And the reason why you're doing it this way is out of spite, because he decided not to vote your way. And that, my friend, in my opinion, is disgusting. Because if you love your child, you want to give your child a chance to be successful. And that means giving them a grace period. That means letting them know, hey, listen, in about 2 months, you got to figure it out. I'm going to give you that grace period. I'm going to help you out, but you need to start figuring it out now, because your mom and I are not going to be able to pay your tuition any longer, or pay your car payments, or whatever it is. We can't financially sustain you any longer. And we're giving you up until this point in time to figure it out. Get a job, do what you got to do. But to cut them off immediately as a way to teach them a lesson, to me, is just nasty, and it's spiteful. And if you think your children are going to thank you for that decision, knowing why you did what you did, you're living in La La Land, because they're not. They're going to see what you did as spiteful, angry, bitter. And if anything, it's only going to reflect badly and poorly on the left, and how intolerant they are. That even a father would cut off his children, not because of a greater picture, but because he's pissed off that they voted for the Nazi, Trump. You know, I remember when I was in my early 20s, and one night I got super sick. Like I had like 104.5 fever. Like it was, I think, the worst I've ever been sick in my life. I was sick like a dog, and I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance. But my mother was like, we have to go to the ER. You are not good. Like, you're burning up through your shirt. So we go to the ER. I get, work done. They helped me out. They gave me pills and, IV, whatever it was. And the bill was like $7,000, a bill that I could not pay. And my dad, being the dad that he is, decided to, when he saw the bill, he said, wait a minute, let me see what I can do. He got with his job. He upgraded his insurance to add me to his insurance, because at that point in time I wasn't on his insurance. He added me to his insurance so that way the insurance would pay the bill. I would have been in debt $7,000 in my early 20s, not knowing what the heck to do over an ER visit, had it not been for my dad stepping up and saying, I got you. And at that point in time, politically, we were not on the same wavelength, and he still took care of me. So again, my dad could have been spiteful. He could have been like this dad and be like, oh, figure it out yourself. You want to be on the left? That's what you get. But instead, he saw me as his son who needed help, who he knew could not sustain himself at that time financially, and he took care of me. And that's, in my opinion, what a parent does. They do what they can for their child. And if they decide to cut them off, it's for their own benefit and for their own good. And they do it in a way where the child can transition to full independence. You don't just cut them off out of nowhere, out of spite, because of how they voted. That, to me, is just the opposite of care and parenting, in my opinion. I actually bought my home that I live in right now because I was able to save so much money while I was living with my parents. My parents allowed me to save all of my money while I was working full time to afford a down payment on the home that I live in right now. And because of them, I was able to become a homeowner, and I'm fully independent. I don't depend on the government. I don't depend on them helping me. I pay everything. I pay my own mortgage. I do it all myself, because my parents allowed me that period to save money in a crazy economy so that I could afford to live on my own and to buy my first home, because of my parents' support. Now, had my dad and my mom cut me off because politically I was different from them, I would be so screwed right now, because I would not have been able to afford a down payment on anything, because I would have been struggling like crazy. But thank God for my parents. And that's my point. I'm independent because at some point I was dependent on their help, and they didn't just cut me off out of spite. And this man asked the question at the end, am I a bad parent, or did I mess up, as a dad for doing this? I vote yes. I vote yes, because your intentions were not pure. Your intentions were not, oh, okay, I see my children are getting of a certain age and I want them to understand financial independence, so let me start to cut them off little by little in different bills so they can start taking responsibility. That's what my parents did. My parents did not just cut me off and say, good luck. They could have, but thank God they had grace. They understood my situation, and they allowed me to little by little become independent to where I am today, where I fully take care of my own bills. There's not one bill that my parents take care of. I do everything on my own as an independent person, but it's because I had parents who allowed me to transition to full independence. Had they cut me off without any warning, I would have been screwed. This dad did what he did, not because he was trying to teach his boys a lesson for their own benefit. He did it out of spite because he could, because he had power over them, and he wanted them to suffer for voting for Donald Trump. Now, is that supposed to get them on the left? Is that supposed to teach them a lesson and they'll never ever vote right again? They'll never vote Republican again? If anything, you may have just created lifelong Republicans because they're seeing just how intolerant the left is, where their own father is cutting them off, not to help them or to give them independence, but out of spite. Make no mistake about it, this is out of spite. And that's truly sad. That is truly, truly sad. The intentions are all wrong. The wife is correct. You are going to create distance between your sons. And if I were his sons, I would keep my distance because it's obvious that my dad is not stable enough to support me and my decisions in my life. If he's willing to cut me off out of spite because I voted a different way than he did, what else is he willing to do if I don't agree with him? That's someone who is trying to manipulate me into being what he wants me to be. And if I don't listen, he's gonna cut me off. Well, you know what? I'm 21, I'll figure it out. I don't know, I just feel bad for his sons because being in your early 20s is a very, very scary time because you are technically an adult. However, financially, because of inflation and how difficult it is to pay bills and to sustain yourself financially, you do need the help of your parents a lot longer to help you transition into full independence. And to have somebody know that and still decide to cut you off because you voted for Donald Trump, wow. But you know what? His sons see exactly who their dad is. They see him. They see him. So hopefully his sons will become independent on their own. And when their dad needs help in a nursing home, good luck, Dad. It's for your own benefit. Go to the nursing home. Be independent, Dad. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this video. Was the dad correct in cutting his sons off for those reasons? Or was he wrong for his intentions of cutting them off? Again, I'm not in disagreement of parents deciding at a certain age that my kid has to be independent on their own. But the intention should be there. And it should be pure. It shouldn't be out of spite. Just my take. But you let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit my notification bell so you know when I post a brand new video. And happy Thanksgiving. I love you guys.